Alright, welcome back. In this video we're going to talk about variables and strings, and before we continue I would like to tell you that this video could be quite long because I have to try to explain everything so I don't get to rush things and leave some things behind. So I could split this into two sections. Let's see what we're going to achieve in this section. So we're going to talk about how we can assign and use variables, and then we'll talk about we learn about how we can name variables, the restrictions, some of the rules and guidelines, and then we go further to talk about and we look at various data types which are available in Python. After we're done with that, we are going to understand how we convert data from one data type to another, and then finally we're going to build a simple program in this section. So quickly, what are variables? A Python variable is used to hold a value. It is like a variable in mathematics. I'll just say let's call a variable a container. Like you have a jar, and inside the jar there is salt, and then you give a name to that container, salt. And then you have another container which contains milk, and then you give that milk. So that means the container is a variable having a name, milk or salt, holding something. It is similar to your mathematics where you have x equals 10, and that x is associated with the value 10. So whenever you talk of x in that mathematics statement, you are referring to 10. So that is what this sentence means. Every variable holds a value, which is the information associated with that variable. Let's see another one. Days in a week equals 7. This means that this value is holding something which is 7. In this video we are just going to restrict to numbers because that is all we've talked about so far from our previous videos. But as we continue, we'll see that variable can hold anything. Depending on the kind of data type you're using, a variable can hold it. So we can also perform operations with these variables. For instance, in this case, we've stored s as 10, and then we stored days in a week as 7. Now we want to print days in a week plus x. That means it's going to add this value in days in a week, which is 7 plus 10, and the result is going to be 17. So let us see how these variables are assigned. Variables are always assigned with the variable name on the left, and then we have an equal sign, and then on the right hand side we have the value which is assigned to the variable on the left. And we must assign a variable before we can use it. If we did not declare x here and we want to print x here, it's going to result in an error. Let's quickly go to our terminal or your command prompt and see what we are just talking about. I'll make this big and I'll go into Python 3 in my case. Now we create a variable x, and let's store a value there of 35, and we create another variable y, and we store a value of, let's say, 12 in this. We can perform simple arithmetic operations, so I'll try to print out the result by adding x plus y. So if we print this, we see the result as 47. We can go further to also do something like create another variable s to store the result x plus y. So remember, when we create a variable, it is like this with an equal sign. So we want to do this calculation and we store the result here. So if we print z, we see the result same as 47. Let's take, for instance, another example. We're making a friend app where we add and remove friends. So we declare a variable called friends, and we initialize it at 0 because when you create a friend list, at first you have no friend, and then you begin to get friend requests. For instance, you get a friend request from a friend and he becomes your friend. Now what we can do here is we add friend equals friends plus 1. So if we print friends now, we see the result is 1. But what happens here is this: we have 0 at first as our friend, and then we added this to the 0 and we also stored it in the same. That is what happens here, and it has been incremented. We can also do it like this. Let's say we get 2 more friends and we want to increase this. We can do that as friends plus equal 2. What happens here is this: if I print this as well, we see it's incremented. 2 plus 1 equals 3. What happens is this is a short form of writing this. Instead of writing all of this, you can just do it like this. It means that you're still adding whatever you have here to this, and you're storing it in the same variable, and that is what happens here. Then for instance, one of your friend or something happens and you decide to take away one friend from the list. What we can do is, from that our list, now we use the minus. If we print friends again, we see it is back to 2. So this is one thing we can do with variables. Let's continue. We've talked about variable assignments, how we assign variable, but there are some other things I would want us to see. Variables can be assigned to other variables, like I've shown you. See what we have here. We have hours equal 24, and then another variable, hours, is stored in that variable. That means the value of this variable, you can take a moment to think about it. The value of this variable is also what? 24. I'll try to show you as well. Let's use something example. A equal to B equal A. So if we print A, we get 2. If we print B, we get 2. That is what that means. Going further, we see the next thing. We can reassign a value. We can reassign a variable at any time. This is why Python is dynamic. You see here we have hours as 24. If we reassign it at 12 again, it works perfectly. And then we can assign several variables at the same time. For instance, we have days, week, and month. And then for days we assign 7, week we assign 4, and month we assign 12. In order to name variables, there are some rules and guidelines which we need to follow. There are a couple of them which I have listed here, which are very important, and we talk about them one after the other. In Python, there are rules which we are supposed to follow. If we don't follow some of these rules, we get errors. The first one is that you must start when you want to start or write a variable, you must start with a letter or an underscore. I'll show us what that means. We want to create a variable. Let's say we want to create school, still on numbers. School equals 24. If we want to start with a number 2, school equal 12, we get an error, invalid syntax error. That is because we are trying to start by using 2. So the only way we can start our variable is either we use a number or we use an underscore. This will work. If we print age, if we print the school which we stored, it also works. That is the first one you need to note. The next one is that after you have started with a letter or an underscore, the rest of the name must contain letters, numbers, or underscore with no special character. In other words, if you've started, let's say you want to write school now, this will work. But if you want to write something like school with a special character at now, we're going to get an error saying can't assign to operator, because it sees this as an operator. As we continue, you will see that if we want to do something like school star now, same thing. I believe you get the picture. Going further, the next one is names are case sensitive. If we declare school equal 45 and we want to print school, we start with a capital letter. It's going to tell us that school is not defined because it sees school and this as different variables. Next, Spaces are not allowed in variables. You can either use underscore. This is how you write school. Now I don't know why I'm using this, equal 45. This will work. This is snake, and then this other one, school now equal 36. It will also work. But if we want to put space, school now equal 46, it tells us that we are having a syntax error, so we are not allowed to use space. Then we should avoid using Python keywords and function names as variable. There are a lot of Python keywords which we are going to see, but we should avoid using them. I'll give us an instance. Let's take, for instance, remember we use print. Let's print something we've already initialized, school now, and we print this for 36. If we want to declare school, if we want to declare a variable as print equals 45, remember it is a keyword in Python, it will work for you. If I type print now, it will show 45. So let's try to print school now again. Print school now. We are going to get an error. That is because of the fact that the print value has been reassigned, and there is nothing I'm going to do in this code now that is going to make this print work unless I end this and start again. So I'll use this opportunity to clear this, and I'll run again. I believe you get the picture of what we're talking about. So we can continue now. Variables should be short and descriptive. Name is better than n. Student name is better than sn. Name length is better than length of person name. So these are some of the things we should know about naming variables. There are a couple I would also want to mention. We'll see some things like this when we continue. I'll take, for instance, I'll use init, 2 underscore in the beginning and 2 underscore at the ending. This will also work. We can declare something as this, let's say 24. If we do this, although it is one of the keywords, but I'm just trying to explain something. This, whenever you see something like this, in case you see this in another person's code, the person means that whatever value we have here should not be changed. So this is, whenever you see a variable that is declared like this with 2 underscore at the beginning and 2 at the ending, it means whatever we have here, it is very important, don't change it. And then the next one is when we start seeing camel case that begins with, let's take one as FOOD is good, for instance. If we begin to see something like this that begins with a capital letter, we should know that this is a class. We are still going to look at all of that as we continue, but I just want you to understand that in case you see that in someone else's code. So let's continue. Next, we're going to look at data types, but before we look at that, let's talk about the dynamic typing. Like I said in the previous slide, let me see if I can find that. Okay, I think it's here. Okay, here, where we said that we assigned hours, this value 24 to hours, and then we reassign that same to that same hours to we reassign 12 to that same variable. And what happens is that if we print again, we see that the value of hours is 12, and this is known as dynamic typing. So that is what we want to talk about here. Dynamic typing is what makes Python highly flexible, such that when you assign a value to something, you can reassign it again. For instance, we assigned something here, love programming, as true, then we print love programming, it will be printed, and then we assign again love programming as it seems difficult, we print it. What we are going to get is it seems difficult. We still, in that same program, we assign love programming to none, and then it prints none when we try to print that, as well as we assign love programming to pi, which is 22 by 7, and when we print it, we get that. I'll just show that to us quickly. I've copied that, and if I paste here, you see what I just said. We assign as true, print, and that's everything I've said. You see, it worked as it should be. So I should have to run this one, and you can see it is the same thing. That is what makes Python dynamic, unlike some other programs where, example C++, which is static. When you assign a value, example hate programming equals 1, if you try to change it again to something else, it will give you an error. So that's that on this. I'll continue in the next video where we'll start talking about data types.